Now, what time period does the Northman take place? It takes place in the year 1914 during the opening in 1914 during the Landsmold, and the Landsmold refers to the early settlement of Iceland before the establishment of Althing.
I'm confused. 1914?
914. I'm sorry. Did I say 19?
Yeah.
914. I'm sorry. The year 914, the 10th century. Norse settlers migrated across the North Atlantic Ocean. We see, like, obviously these tribes taking over these villages, these Viking tribes who are the Northmen. And the reasons for the migration are uncertain, but middle-aged Icelanders themselves tended to cite civil strife among the attributing ambitions of the Norwegian king of Harald I of Norway for the reason why they migrated to Iceland. And now, what is a Northman? Essentially a Viking, also called Norsemen or Northmen, member of the Scandinavian seafaring warriors who raided and colonized wide areas of Europe from the 9th to 11th century and whose destructive influence profoundly affected European history.
Yeah, and so Skarsgård plays one of these men, although it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah, so the Northman and his character Amleth is loosely based on the story of Amleth, which is supposed but likely fictional Viking prince, most famous today as the basis for William Shakespeare's Hamlet. So Hamlet was actually inspired by this story of Amleth, which was a small section of a larger saga written in the early 13th century by a Danish historian named Saxon. So Amleth, whether or not it was a true figure, was a true story, was a story told for centuries among these cultures.
That makes a lot of sense because when I watched this movie, I walked out of it thinking that felt like Hamlet and The Lion King because Lion King is based on Hamlet loosely, and the story is essentially a revenge film about a prince who is avenging his father's death at the hand of his uncle.
There's some other terms I'd like to go over real quick just to clear up some terminology.
I'd love to hear it.
So Valhalla is heavily talked about in this film. You might recognize the term from Mad Max or Valhalla Rising that's in a lot of films. And Valhalla in Old Norse, called Valhall in Norse mythology, is the hall of slain warriors who lived there blissfully under the leadership of the god Odin. The ranks of Valhalla would therefore predominantly be filled with elite warriors, especially heroes and rulers. So this is like the greatest honor that a warrior or a leader or king, prince could achieve, supposedly, in the afterlife, is to head to Valhalla.
So it's like the pearly gates of their heaven.
Basically. Yeah. Like Mad Max, like, I live, I die, I live again. That's him going to Valhalla.
Gotcha.
And then what is a berserker? So a berserker in this film are these warriors who are in this like trance-like fury, a characteristic later given to them, gave to the rise of the modern English word berserk, which means furiously violent or out of control. And so these warriors, these Viking Northmen, when they attack a village, they are in this crazy, animalistic, barbaric, savage trance, that's why it actually is brought up berserker. Yeah. So the word berserker literally means bear shirt. Obviously, you can see in the trailer they're wearing like bear skins and bear heads all over their bodies and
that
stuff like that.
That must be where this berserker mode comes into play for Wolverine when he goes berserker.
I'm sure, yeah.
That must be where the term comes from for him.
And also, is it accurate that these Vikings and these Northmen would fight without armor because they're going into battle with like just like something covering their groin, like legit just covered in blood and mud and just holding swords? And actually, according to the 13th century historian Snorri Sturluson, interpreted the meaning as bear shirt. That is to say, the warriors went into battle without armor, and their abdomen was usually exposed, stuff like that. And there's a description by the poet Snorri Sturluson talking about berserkers. Says Odin's men rushed forwards without armor, were as mad as dogs or wolves, bit their shields, and were strong as bears or wild oxen, and killed people at a blow, but neither fire nor iron told upon them. This was the berserker gang. And now on average, the tallest human beings on Earth in terms of like a culture or population, it is in Northern Europe in these areas. That's why I think Eggers did a great job with showing these Viking warriors.
Huge.
They're massive.
They're so tall.
Skarsgård's like 6'5", and every other one of these Viking Northmen is about the same height. Just massive, enormous human beings, just the craziest warriors that you would never want to fight.
And that makes sense, the whole berserker aspect, because when they've become like animalistic beasts when they fight, and they scream and they growl and they act animal-like. And so I love how Eggers brought that cultural history into the action sequences.
And then scholar Hilda Ellis Davidson draws a parallel between the berserkers in the works of Byzantine Emperor Constantine VI, where it's described the berserkers as this fury, which is called the Berserker Gang, occurred not only in the heat of battle, but also during laborious work. Men who were thus seized performed things that were otherwise seemed impossible for human power. This condition is said to have begun with shivering, chattering of teeth, and chill in the body, and the face swelled and changed its color.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. With this was connected a great hot-headedness, which at last gave over into a great rage, under which they howled as wild animals, bit the edge of their shields, and cut down everything they met without discriminating between friend and foe. So it's just this wild fury of crazy rage, animalistic, barbaric war.
I wonder if biologically, like, they're producing intense amounts of adrenaline within them in their bodies by doing that to prepare.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the adrenaline coursing through their veins is what's giving them like this, and like not enhanced strength, but like ability to be stronger than usual and incoherent, just fury. I bet it's like they're creating adrenaline.
They're just jacking themselves up, but they don't use pre-workout. They just go crazy over like spirituality and insanity and barbarism and savagery.
Get the mentality.
Yeah. So, but they did a great job depicting that in this film, and actually, reciting historical things here.
This is history,
to show
folks.
that
it's history.
It was, loosely true. Obviously,
fact check true.
This is hundreds and hundreds of years ago, so like we weren't there.
This was in 1914, guys.
But, we're going off, historical documents here. And I think that's what Eggers was trying to do and show when they were writing this, was to try to be as historically accurate as they can, even though they understood that there are enormous gaps with what actually was happening at the time.